Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've been following the tech space lately, you absolutely know we're right in the middle of a frantic global AI revolution. But I actually want you to set aside everything you've been hearing about graphics processing units, large language models, and code for just a second. Because the real race, the one that's literally going to determine the winners and losers of the next century, well, it's not actually about chips. It is fundamentally, unavoidably, about raw electricity. So let's dive right into this.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start off with the new AI wake-up call, and then we'll unpack the hidden electron crisis. From there, we're looking at a tale of two superpowers, assessing India's renewable reality, and finally, we'll do the cold hard math on the impending power deficit.
All right, part one, the new AI wake-up call. All around the world, traditional tech hubs are suddenly realizing their legacy systems are becoming completely obsolete. Consider this incredibly powerful metaphor from analyst Satyen K. Bordoloi. He says, India arrives at the AI party with a lamp. The hall has been lit for years. For a solid decade, India has largely just watched the AI race unfold, feeling pretty comfortable as the software back office of the world. But AI is now exceptionally good at doing exactly what those outsourcing companies did. That era is essentially ending, and it's forcing a massive pivot. Now, in March 2024, the Indian government approved the India AI mission. But the real earthquake? That hit in January 2025 when a Chinese startup released DeepSeek R1. This reasoning model didn't just rattle Silicon Valley, it wiped a staggering $1 trillion off US tech stocks, literally almost overnight. It completely shattered all our assumptions about training costs, and suddenly there was this aggressive global scramble to pivot, with nations offering massive compute subsidies. A sleeping giant had definitely stirred.
India's initial reaction was big. They committed $1.25 billion, which is roughly 10,300 crore rupees, to its India AI mission. But here's the really big catch. The national conversation and pretty much all of that funding focus were almost entirely on chips, GPUs, and homegrown LLMs. They were looking intently at the brain of AI, but they were completely missing the bigger picture.
Which brings us to Section 2, the hidden electron crisis.
You see, we've been so entirely fixated on the brains, the chips, the compute clusters, the complex algorithms, but absolutely none of that functions without the blood, which is the massive continuous streams of electrical power required to actually run that hardware. You simply cannot run a massive GPU farm without sufficient power. The world is in this intense parallel race for the electrons needed to feed these systems, and to be honest, many nations are falling dangerously behind.
So the absolutely crucial thing to grasp here is what we call the electron gap. This is a massive structural deficit of electricity that's needed to meet the immense power demands of scaling AI infrastructure. Just to give you a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about here, Deloitte estimates that India alone is going to need an additional 40 to 50 terawatt hours of electricity by 2030, strictly just to meet the projected demand for AI-driven data centers. That requires building an entirely new layer of power infrastructure at an unprecedented breakneck pace.
And the IMF has issued a really stark warning about this. They project that by 2030, global data centers could consume as much electricity as all of India does today. Just take a second and really imagine that. An entire nation's power grid, a nation of 1.5 billion people completely gobbled up by server farms in just 5 years. The bottom line is, if a country wants to grab a meaningful share of global AI infrastructure, it has to produce the electrons to run it.
Let's look at Section 3. A tale of two superpowers.
There is a massive, and I mean massive, discrepancy in how the top players are building capacity right now. Just look at the additions in 2024. The US added 51 gigawatts of new power capacity. China, they added 429 gigawatts. OpenAI actually took data just like this straight to the White House to sound the alarm, pointing out that China is building energy infrastructure at nearly 9 times the pace of the US. The divergence in their strategies is honestly striking. The US is essentially trying to run brand new AI technology on an ancient power grid, and they're facing a projected 44 gigawatt shortfall in the next 3 years alone. They are currently fast-tracking fossil fuels, while hyperscalers like Google and AWS are aggressively investing in private, small modular nuclear reactors to secure their own supply. China, on the other hand, treats electricity as a strategic national asset, planning and building well ahead of demand. By 2030, China is projected to have 300 to 400 gigawatts of spare capacity. That means their data centers are going to pay less than half the electricity rates of their American counterparts.
Moving into Section 4, let's talk about India's renewable reality.
Now, to be completely fair, India hasn't just been standing still on energy. Not at all. In 2025, they added a record 44 gigawatts of renewable energy. They now sit third globally in total solar capacity and fourth in total renewable capacity. They've built up an entire supply chain to manufacture solar modules at scale, and they've got this super ambitious goal to hit 100 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2047. Make no mistake, these are real, massive achievements on the global stage.
But here's exactly why those achievements still might not be enough. Currently, AI data centers consume less than 1% of India's electricity grid. But by 2030, that is expected to triple to 3%. And I know, 3% sounds kind of small, right? Until you realize the sheer staggering scale of the Indian grid. To feed just that 3%, you need an entirely new layer of infrastructure built at a speed that literally no one has ever attempted before.
Which brings us to our final section. Section 5. The impending power deficit. Let's just walk through a quick mathematical reality check. First up, India is projecting a massive six-fold increase in data center capacity, going from 1.5 gigawatts today to 10.5 gigawatts by 2031. That is incredible local growth. But step 2, global data center power demand is expected to touch an unfathomable 1,600 terawatt hours by 2035, which leads us to the final point. India's target of 500 gigawatts of renewable energy is super ambitious historically, but when you stack it up against the actual needs of global AI infrastructure, it falls critically short. The local growth is just completely dwarfed by this massive global appetite.
To truly understand the scale we are dealing with here, look at this number, 250 gigawatts. That is the compute capacity that just one single corporation, OpenAI, plans to build by 2033. Let me just repeat that because it's wild. One single tech company is planning to consume as much electricity as is currently required to power the entire nation of India and its 1.5 billion people.
So it really all comes down to this. The AI race will be won by whoever keeps the lights on. You can have the absolute best algorithms in the world, the most advanced open source models, and billions of dollars piled into chip subsidies. But if the grid fails, the intelligence dies. The foundation of the future isn't software at all. It's electrons.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought for you to take away from this explainer today. We've woken up to the chip problem for sure, but the power problem is still kind of waiting for its moment of reckoning. Will nations adapt in time to treat electricity as the ultimate strategic asset, or will their grand AI ambitions simply burn out in the dark? Definitely something to think about the next time you boot up an AI tool. Thanks for joining us, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.